Hi folks, the missus is out with the kids at gymnastics, and so whilst I had the spare 10 minutes, I just wanted to create a follow-up video to my previous video about me and my Asperger's diagnosis. It's Asperger's, but I look at it and it doesn't read right, so I continue to call it Asperger's. I know it's wrong. Um, Kill me. Um, So people have been asking about, what it was like to get diagnosed. How did you do it? How did you go about doing it? How did you, what were the considerations before going to get a diagnosis? So I just wanted to run through a few of those, not particularly in depth, but um, and also about my feelings post diagnosis. So as I said in the previous video, the missus turned around to me once and said, I think you might be autistic. You should do some tests and see what it's like. And so I did. I did some online tests. Now, it's been a long time since I did those because I got diagnosed in 2016 and I haven't done anything about it since. I got diagnosed. What's the point? Um, but I can't find I can't find the letter that has my diagnosis on it. It's in my doctor's records at the GP somewhere, but I haven't. I have a copy. I suspect the missus has filed it away somewhere, and if not, it's gone missing. But so this is part of the reasoning anyway. I didn't go to get diagnosed because I needed to go and prove to employers or other people um, that I was autistic. It was more just a thing to satisfy, scratch an itch. I had no, real need to prove that I was autistic because I'm self-employed. So, I'm just proving to myself that I am an autistic person, which, regardless of what the outcome of the test was, that would have scratched that itch. If it had come back negative, I probably would never have put another second thought into it. It's come back positive, so now I do bits and pieces of speaking, but it hasn't changed me particularly as a person, other than my awareness of what autism is and specifically what Asperger's is. I won't lie to you though, like because of the late diagnosis, I do occasionally get feelings of imposter syndrome. Just like working in IT. I work for NASA. That gives you quite severe, imposter syndrome. But I've clearly worked hard enough and learned enough to earn that right. Similarly with Asperger's, I didn't get diagnosed until I was 33 ish. And so and then I look at other people's videos, like Colin from Foxes Afloat and stuff, and he has regular meltdowns. I don't have regular meltdowns. I get stressed and don't really like social situations. But everybody's different. I think is the key for stuff like this. And just because one person's symptoms are different to your symptoms doesn't mean that it's any different in terms of what the diagnosis is. It just means that your body behaves differently. And of course, you can be more or less Asperger, you can be more or less autistic. This is why it's a scale. But um, everybody behaves differently in life, and certainly in the Asperger's, the autistic spectrum, everybody's different. So if I look at someone and say, oh, well, regular meltdowns and, stresses versus, well, I cope all right. I'm not a huge fan of social situations, but if I'm dumped in them, I'll probably muddle through to the end. I mean, one thing that I didn't say in the video last week was Christmas this year was absolutely awful. I went round to my missus' parents for Christmas. I think it's Boxing Day. We went round, and it was so stressful. I mean, I was punching myself in the head. I don't know why. I don't know why I found it so stressful. I just really couldn't cope that day. And the next day, at some point, I just went and laid down on the bed upstairs because I was just like, I can't cope with life at the moment. And it's only got to some points where, yeah, it was pretty tough. But these days are few and far between. That was like the only one in recent time that I can remember. I'm sat down by this radiator. I have sat down here a few times over the last 12 months, but not like severely. But Christmas was bad. Um, and so how did I go and get the diagnosis? Now, I did a bunch of online tests. I mentioned the Channel 4 one. That one doesn't exist anymore, but there's a whole bunch of others. And so I went and did one because I can't find my diagnosis letter anymore. I went and did one of these online tests, which I'm going to put on the screen in a second. And, what that shows is, I'm answering the questions honestly, and I don't feel like I'm any different to anyone else. But the online test says that there's a 90% chance that I have an autistic spectrum disorder. And I'll upload the PDF and put a link to it so you can have a read through and see what my answers were like. You can go and do your own. A lot of these online tests, basically the questions are exactly the same. And when you go to get a diagnosis, they basically run through the same set of very similar questions to help, with the diagnosis. And of course, they sit there and ask you a whole bunch of other questions. So, I did the online test. It came back saying it was likely that I was going to be Asperger. So then I could have gone NHS. I could have asked the doctor, but they don't tend to um, prioritize, understandably, adult Aspergic, potentially Aspergic people, because we got this far through life. It's not necessarily going to be the end of the world if we don't get a diagnosis. And like I said, it didn't actually make any difference to my employability or anything because I'm self-employed. So it didn't make much of a difference. So I decided to, well, if I go and get a private diagnosis, it helps, cure my urges and understanding. Um, and that's fine. So I had a quick Google and found a couple of places in Norwich and arranged a chat with a doctor, female doctor in Norwich. And it was 2 sessions. We went down for the first one, and she asked a whole bunch of questions. I think we did the questionnaire that time, might have been before. I can't remember. But we went down for one consultation, and had a chat, and then went away. Came back probably a week later for a second consultation. She asked a different set of questions. Went through a whole bunch of other stuff. So it was quite involved. It was a few hours, 3 hours probably in total, maybe 4 hours by the time we'd finished nattering and all that type of stuff. So, there was a lot of questions and answers because so much of this is just down to whether the doctor believes that, you're high enough up the spectrum, because it's not a black and white diagnosis. So after the 2 sessions, I then went away, and then she rang me a week later and wanted to discuss the results. So I went down a third time with my partner where, we went through the results, what the options were, which are limited and I wasn't particularly bothered about, and what I should concentrate on going forward. And she offered me the ability to get further counselling and that type of stuff, but, I don't need it, I don't think. Maybe I do. Tell me if I do. Um, But, so getting the private diagnosis certainly sped things up. It meant that I didn't have to, go through a whole bunch of NHS hoops. It did cost me £650, I think, something around there. But, it was worth it just because it got it sort of out the way and it didn't just eat away at the back of my brain for quite a long time. So, if you're interested in getting an Asperger's or an autistic diagnosis, try some of the online tests because in reality, yes, they're online, but you'll get asked very much similar questions in the real thing. If you have the cash and you feel like you want to just get it out the way, then going private will speed things up. Of course, the flip side of the argument is that you're paying them money, so it's they're more likely to give you the diagnosis that you're looking for. I'm not entirely convinced by that argument. I can sort of see why people would say it. But I sort of, I believe that doctors are there to provide you with an honest appraisal. And also if you're going private and you have a Google, find ones that have decent ratings or people who can give you honest feedback from, when they went and what happened with their diagnosis, so that it's not just, you finding the first doctor on the list. And if you can't afford it, go down to your GP, have a chat with your GP, see if you can get a referral. Might take a while, might not take a while. They might say no. But it's worth a shot. And obviously there's plenty of online help. There is support in the communities. The East Anglia at least has a very good autism support network, if you chose to use it. I don't, but yeah. So I'll put a link in the description to the output of the report that I just got about half an hour ago in my inbox from one of the online tests I did, so people can have a look and see what I consider my traits to be. I'm sure if people go through the questions, some people would disagree, but I feel like I answered it honestly. Um, and if you feel like you should scratch that itch, I'll put a couple of links to where I did the test. That one cost like $2 because for some reason I didn't read the small print. I got to the end. I couldn't be asked doing another one. But there's plenty of free sites. I'll find some and put the links in, and you can go and have a test. So I hope that was useful. I'm now going to go and clean out my fish tank because the kids aren't here and I better do something so I don't get told off for sitting around all day. Have a good rest of your weekend. It's a scorcher in the UK, so I'm going to go and try and not get sunburned at the kids' school fete this afternoon. So enough rambling. Bye for now. See you later.